You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
وتكلم من هناك لشوارزنيجر.
Pegarle el Ronaldinho Gaucho. Ya lo hace. Pierna derecha, directo al arco. ¡Golazo! 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 ¡Golazo!
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
Welcome to Soccer Today. I'm Duane Rollins along with Kevin Laramee. We're going to jump straight into an interview with Dino Rossi, the Commissioner of Ligue 1 Ontario today, to sort of discuss the state of the union, I guess, within Ligue 1 Ontario and to set up the final, which goes Saturday at the Ontario Soccer Centre between the Vaughan Azzurri and FC London. If you're listening to this and you're not from Ontario, you're not from Canada even, and you're wondering why this is relevant to you, Ligue 1 Ontario plays a vital role in the development pathway here in Canada, and it's kind of a unique little project that's happening up here, and I think it really should resonate for anyone who has interest in grassroots and development issues. So I urge you to stick around for it. If you are from Ontario, I urge you to get your butt up to the Ontario Soccer Centre on Saturday and support local soccer. But with that said, and no further ado, let's bring Dino on the line now. Dino, how are you?
I'm great, guys. Thank you for having me on the show.
All right. As I said, there are listeners to our show that might not be necessarily familiar with Ligue 1 Ontario. So let's just start, with you explaining what exactly Ligue 1 Ontario is.
Well, Ligue 1 Ontario is the top level of senior soccer competition in the province. It is we call it a Pro-Am league. It's sanctioned as a semi-professional league, but we do have teams that are operating as all amateur. We have players that have gone on from our league and graduated to fully professional contracts all over the world. We've got upwards of 30-plus players who've represented Canada this year alone on the men's and women's side. We have a 16-team men's division, and we have a 9-team women's division, which is the only one of its kind in the entire country. It's been, we're entering finishing our third season now on our men's side. We just finished off the second season on our women's side with FC London, who are new to our league, taking the women's division title. It's been an exciting run over the last 3 years, and we feel that we've made a pretty big impact on the state of soccer in the province of Ontario specifically.
For sure, and we're going to get back into some of those good stories and broad strokes in feature on in this interview. But I do want to specifically focus on your men's final, and I stress the word men's there. As Dino said, there is a women's division which doesn't have a playoff system. It crowned FC London as their champions a while back now. So let's just set up that final. Dino, tell the listeners a little bit about the two clubs that will be competing on Saturday for the championship.
Well, yeah, this year we are featuring an actual championship final. In the first two seasons, we had a more traditional single table format, but as the league has grown to 16 teams, we split the men's division up into an 8-team men's East Conference and an 8-team West Conference. Vaughan Azzurri, who are based out of Maple, Ontario, coached by Carmen Asako, who is somebody that I think a lot of people in the local soccer scene are very well aware of. They were the champions of the East. I think they lost only one game all season. They're on a real hot streak as the season wound down. They feature some outstanding talent, people that might be well known, like former national team player Joseph DiChiara. They've got Jarek Whiteman on their team. Brandon and Josh Mills, a lot of really exciting young and more senior talent. And then you have FC London, who, as I said before, are new to the league. The organization that used to play in the PDL made the jump to Ligue 1 this season, and both their men's and women's sides have been spectacularly successful. They're coached by a young Croatian coach by the name of Mario Despotovic. And they feature the Golden Boot winner, Elvir Gegelaj, and a real strong lineup of local players. They made it their MO was to field a side that was strongly London-based, and they've done very, very well and have created a lot of excitement in their communities, very well supported, and we expect to see a lot of people from London make the trek down the 401 to the Ontario Soccer Centre for the game on Saturday.
And at 4 p.m. on Saturday up at the Ontario Soccer Centre, by all means, please come up and check that out. But a lot of our listeners are MLS fans, of course, and they'll be interested to sort of understand and know that TFC Academy is one of the teams in this league. They were the first champions in the first season. They have not been near the top since then. Could you just talk about TFC Academy in the sense of how they fit into your league structure and what they bring to League One Ontario?
Well, TFC Academy brings a supremely talented but young group of players. In year one, their team was a lot more mature. And from that group, you had guys who are now featuring for TFC's first team, like Molam Babuli, who was our inaugural season's MVP and Golden Boot winner. Since 2014, they made the decision to go a little younger in League One, and that as a result, they've had their ups and downs. They tend to start a little bit slowly, but as the season ramps up, they get better and they get stronger, and they make themselves well known. They had a real good finish to the season this year. They think in 2015 they went like 9-10 games in a row without losing at the end of the season. Very, very talented. A lot of bright stars of the future there. A lot of those young men are featuring for the U17 and U20 national team setups, or at least in the pool there. They're the future of Toronto FC, and then in a lot of cases, there's a lot of guys there that are going to be the future of the Canadian men's national team. So obviously, we're really excited to have them part of the league. It's imperative. It's imperative to us that we have TFC in the league. We support their decision to go young, because we think that as a fully professional club playing at the MLS level, that's what fits into their development model.
Dino, I want to bring you back to more than 3 years ago, before the creation of League One Ontario, when you were working behind the scenes to get the project started. Did you expect that after not even 3 full seasons completed, upwards of 30 players for this season, that's without the first 2 seasons, represented the Maple Leaf at a national, international stage? What is your thought on what League One has been able to do to bridge that gap and help give an opportunity to players that would have slipped between the cracks over the last 3 years?
Well, Kevin, you used the perfect phrase. It's about bridging the gap. I've always been of the belief that from a grassroots perspective, Canada isn't that bad. I mean, I think there's room to improve, but our grassroots system is fairly well constructed. It creates great opportunity for players to get into the sport and to progress through the sport. But for me, the biggest gap in the system has always been what happens to a player after they're 16 years old and 17 years old. And we needed to bridge that gap, because the jump from youth soccer to the professional realm and to the international realm is massive. So for us, in your private moments, you hope that you can have that kind of impact with a project like this. But if you're being realistic, you don't know for sure that it can all come together so quickly. But for us to have, after our first season, a player like Kyle Lauren graduate out of our league and be the #1 draft pick in the MLS and be the rookie of the year and jump on the scene with the men's national team, that was fantastic. To have so many players from our league who graduated and doing well in the USL. You had Richie Laria get drafted by Orlando City as well. We've had players go overseas and do really well. Joe Zupo, who was one of our top defenders last year, had an outstanding season in Australia this year. We have women who are graduating from our league and going off to Europe and playing at the professional level, and we have more who we expect to go over after this season. It's really rewarding, and it gives you a lot of motivation to keep working hard and helping young players with ambition and talent and with the right attitude to achieve their goals in the game. And, I'm already looking forward to 2017.
What is 2017 going to look like? The applications are not open for Ligue 1 Ontario teams that would like to join Ligue 1 for next year. They can submit that on the website. What is Ligue 1 Ontario going to look like in 2017, 2018, in the next 5 years? What are the big plans that you have for this league,
Well, you're right. The applications for 2017 are due in tomorrow, actually, by tomorrow afternoon. And we expect that there will be a handful of new applicants making a bid to join the league. I think at this stage in our development, it's fair to say that we've grown probably a little quicker than we ever anticipated we would. And it's important that we take a intelligent and measured approach to future expansion so that we can ensure that the level of competition stays high, that we can keep up with the demands that the growth of our league has placed on the referee pool in the province, because that's really important too. We're very, very committed to making sure that Ligue 1 is a high-level platform for the top young match officials in this province, but we also have to make sure that we're not pushing young referees up to a level that they haven't really got prepared themselves for. So we're working closely with the referee development department at the OSA to make sure that we have the match officials we need to grow. I expect that we might grow a little bit on both the men's and women's side. But like I said, I think it's going to be in 2017. It'll be fairly moderate growth. We'd like to see our league enter into more markets where we don't already have a strong presence. We're fairly well represented in the Greater Toronto area, but there are outlying areas, Eastern Ontario, Southern Ontario like Niagara and Hamilton, and some spots along the 401 West, and Kitchener-Waterloo or what have you that we're not in yet. And in the north, there's great clubs north of the GTA that we would love to see get involved in the league as well. But step by step, we've run pretty quickly over 3 years. We'd like to kind of slow it down to a walk at this stage and make sure that every decision we make is a smart one, and that ensures that every game that is played in the league is a meaningful game, that the competition level is really, really high, and we're giving players a test of each and every game. As far as the future goes, that's to be seen. I think as the league grows, we're going to have to look at competition structures that might better allow us to expand the league more widely in the future. But right now, not really prepared to go into too much detail there.
Competition structures. I think if anyone reads between the lines, you might know what you might be saying there. Is that a possibility of a tiered system down the line, Dino? I know you can't commit to that right now, but is that what you're sort of suggesting?
Tiering is always something that you have to look at to make sure that, again, that the commitment to ensuring that every game that it gets played week in, week out is high quality and meaningful. That's something you have to look at, but not ready to make any commitments on that subject at this point.
All right, fair enough. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask a question about tiering, because that's a topic everyone wants to talk about, of course. One of the subtle things that I think that this league has done from my close observation of it is it has created a greater cooperation in certain parts of the pyramid. I like to point to Durham United as a success story that should be replicated in various other markets. And if Durham, that's not a fake name. They're actually a united team from 3 different soccer clubs. And I think that that's really a subtle little valuable thing that's happening, because cooperation is not always something that has necessarily happened throughout the system in the past. Do you think that is the future of clubs to compete at this level, of smaller clubs getting together and putting their resources together to create truly united regional clubs? Is that maybe the future that we're looking at here?
At the high performance level, if I'm speaking personally, I think it's critical. I think that, you said it, the pooling of resources, be it financial resources or human resources, is really important. A lot of our clubs continue to be largely governed by volunteers. and there's only so many resources to go around. So when you can have groups like we have in Durham, where you have Pickering Soccer Club and Oshawa Kicks and West Rouge working together in order to provide a high level of soccer competition for men and women in that region, and they're working cooperatively to field the first teams, stage games in various communities. Oshawa hosted a bunch of games for the team, although they play most of their games in Pickering. Working together to field the reserve teams, working together at the OPDL level with Durham United, Pickering rebranded as Durham United FA, or United FA, sorry, and they're working together at that level. It's to me, it's the future, and I know that based on conversations I've had with people, there's more and more of these kinds of discussions happening around our league. You can look at one of the new entrants this year on the women's side, Derby, which is a joint license held between the Whitby Soccer Club and Darlington Soccer Club. This league has created a lot of these kinds of working relationships, and we would love to see more of it, because by working together, I think you can accomplish more.
I want to turn our attention to the women's side for a second, and I'm always curious what the ceiling for the women's league is, because there's not a lot of opportunities for women to play at a high level, not as many as men, certainly. And I'm wondering how you envision the future of this, looking 4, 5, 10 years down the road for League One Ontario women. Is this a league that really could be something even bigger than what it is now?
I do believe that. I believe that women's soccer at the higher levels is poised for a lot of growth. Let's not even talk about the national teams, which obviously is the highest level of women's competition. But from an outsider's perspective, I see the NWSL in the U.S. Becoming very stable and thriving. I see opportunities for women in Europe to play at a professional level expanding. We've had a great deal of interest from clubs overseas to get more information about our players. We have a channel on YouTube where we upload all of the games that are played, and we're getting requests all the time. I need a link for this game, I need a link for that one. People are watching our players because we have a lot of talent. We have agents who are interested in helping our players get over to Europe specifically and hook up with teams there. And while the landscape overseas isn't perfect on the women's side, it's getting a lot better. And I think over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see more and more opportunities. And I hope we're going to see some at the full professional level here in Canada, whether it be clubs joining the NWSL or some other structure. I think our league, because we want to be a home for our top NCAA players and CIS players to be able to play during the summertime, don't see it ever becoming, fully professional, but because you don't want to affect university eligibility. Education is obviously a very, very big priority for a lot of players, male and female, but especially on the women's side of the game. But I see us as an important stepping stone for women who are trying to make their way into the university system, those who are in it and trying to stay fit and ready for their upcoming university season. But also once they finish school, we think that it's an important stage for them to prepare themselves in order to make that jump to the pro level. You look at the young woman who was our Golden Boot winner from FC London, Jade Kovacevic, who was at a top school in the States, but didn't quite work out. She was part of the national team setup, but it hasn't been in a while. She was an absolute superstar this year. She was absolutely dominant and got the attention of all kinds of people that she might not otherwise have gotten. And I have enormous confidence that she's going to be playing at the professional level if that's what she wants to do. And I feel that she is someone that the national team should be looking at again because her quality is undeniable. We have other young women in the league who have finished university and are planning for the future And playing professional football is part of that plan. I'm not sure 5 years ago there would have been that many young women who, if they weren't part of the national team setup, were looking at that as an option. But now more and more they are. And, we feel it's important. It's part of our mission is to help these women after they finish school, that if professional soccer is part of their short-term or long-term goal, that we're here to help facilitate that.
All right. Our final question before I let you tell people how they can find their way up to the Ontario Soccer Centre and get tickets. So the final question has to relate to the Canadian Premier League, the rumors of that starting in a couple years. I'm wondering where you see Ligue 1 Ontario fitting if and when that project is launched.
I think that the CPL is the single most important project that Canada Soccer is working on. And for us at Ligue 1, we see it as an important piece to make our league even more important, more relevant in the soccer high performance player pathway. Right now, as you know very well, we have a lot of great talent, but it's a lot easier for us to send our players overseas in a lot of cases than it is to try to get them opportunities in leagues like the MLS or the NASL, where there are pretty firm caps on Canadian players getting opportunities, because we're treated as foreign players, and there's a lot of competition for those foreign player spots. We've had some success in USL, but we placing players there. But for us to have a league that exists to develop Canadian professional players, and to meet the needs of the Canadian soccer system, not a foreign league that is built to service the needs of U.S. soccer. It's going to just make more and more players motivated to pursue the professional game. And our league, I think, might end up fitting in very much like major junior hockey does in the hockey world, where we are going to be the hothouse for the best players between the ages of, let's say, 17 and 23. And that's where, clubs in the CPL will be looking for great young talent. Who knows if in the first stages of the CPL, you're going to have clubs setting up full academies like they do in the MLS. I think maybe that won't happen initially as you're getting a project like that started up. Some may, some may not, but leagues like ours, leagues like the PLSQ in Quebec, will then become hothouses for great young local talent that can be plucked by these full professional clubs. And for us, that would be fantastic. That's what we want to see. We want to have that clear pathway. So when a young boy is 12 years old, he knows what the pathway is. It's OPDL to Ligue 1 and hopefully onto the CPL. And then from the CPL, who knows what the future holds for him.
We all hope that, all right, quickly, as before we say goodbye, is there a way for people to pre-order tickets or to get tickets up there, or just give some information on the game on Saturday?
Yeah, absolutely. Our tickets are available online at Brown Paper Tickets, and you can check us out on our Facebook page, to Ligue 1 Ontario's Facebook page, to click the link and buy your tickets at $12 in advance, $15 at the door. If you are a Vaughan Azzurri or FC London fan and you buy tickets at the door and you're wearing club gear, you're going to get a $2 discount, which, we want to see a lot of fans out there making noise. The Ontario Soccer Centre is located at Highway 7 and Martin Grove in Woodbridge, Ontario. Fairly easy access from the 427, the 407, or even the 400. So we encourage everybody to come out and support local soccer, support Ligue 1, and come and check out what's going to be a really great soccer match.
Absolutely. It's where TFC2 plays, for those that are familiar with that. Dino, thanks again. We'll see you Saturday, and good luck moving forward.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Welcome back, and thanks again to Dino for not only joining us, but all that he's done over the past 10 years, really, in Canadian soccer. I first met Dino about 8.5 years ago now. So, yeah, he's so lots changed in that time. And
League One was his idea, and a lot of people complained, or over the last decade, a lot of people have been really critical with soccer in this country, with the way it was treated, the way there was lack of opportunity. And Dino was one of the people that did not just talk about it, but did something about it.
Yeah, in the Canadian soccer circles, and this I think would also speak to our American listeners out there, that there's parts of the American soccer world out there that is really, really good at telling us what we can't do. There's not a lot of people out there that are willing to step up and say what we can do. There's a lot of people out there telling us what we can't do and what we do wrong. And Dino, to his immense credit, just got down to business and got a project off the ground. And if you look back at the time just before Ligue 1 Ontario launched, now, originally the plans were that it was going to launch 4 years ago, but they delayed and deferred for a year. And if you remember, like I remember back to that year, the noise that was coming out around Ontario soccer circles about, oh, this is clearly going to fail, and this is just proof that it's not there. Whereas what they were doing is they were just making sure they were ready to launch at a position of strength, which reminds me of another project that's happening here in Canada. So that's all I'm going to say on that. And, as I said, a lot of people will tell us what we can't do. Not a lot will tell us what we can do. Kevin, in terms of, to switch it for the last 2 minutes of this block, and then we'll move on and get into, we're actually going to completely turn gears and talk about Manchester United, Liverpool.
Totally different type of setting.
Yeah. Look, as I said, the two teams that are going to be playing this week, the FC London is a remarkable story in the sense that what they did, they were a very successful PDL program. So some people may look down their nose and say that a PDL team coming into the league and immediately being successful is indicating that, maybe the PDL is at a higher level right now. And I think that the best teams in the PDL probably are at a higher level right now. But what London did by leaving the PDL to come into Ligue 1 Ontario, as Dino quite rightly pointed out, is they moved from a format which saw them have some local talent, some Canadian talent, but intermixing it with a lot of other talent that was just up for the summer, to making it an entirely local team that maybe, even if they are competing at a slightly lower level overall, are still benefiting their local community a lot more, I believe, than they were when they were kind of a mixed team playing in an American league. And this is all these people that want to yell at me about the PDL being a better option. I think that they failed to look at that. Look at Thunder Bay's roster. Not a lot of Canadians on it. Not very many people from Thunder Bay. Ligue 1 Ontario is there to serve the local markets and to serve the local player, to give the local player an opportunity to perform and prove themselves so that they can move on to a higher level. And I'm just not sure, as I've said many, many times before, Kevin, that the American systems allow us the same opportunity, which is why we need to create our own solutions. Yeah. Any thoughts before we say we take a break and go to United Liverpool?
No, it makes a lot of sense. And when you mention, I just want to put it practically, like what it is on a day-to-day basis. I remember when I was in high school, I had friends that were playing high-level soccer, the highest they could, but they wouldn't even challenge at that level. Now, in communities like this, example, the PLSQ to some level, and Ligue 1 Ontario in Ontario, you have that opportunity for that 15, 16-year-old wonderkind, or those 18, 19-year-old just want to play at a high level because they can compete. They might not have the ambitions or the opportunities to draw talent to go higher, but they can compete at that level. It gives them a place to play, to get that competitiveness and to get that game going, and that's what it gives, that opportunity. Those wonderkinds that we all knew one or two people and persons in our life were in the soccer world or any other sport in high school that were the best of the city, the best of the neighborhood. Well, now they'll have a place to play.
Precisely. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll change gears, come back, and we'll have some MLS, some international women's soccer, some EPL talk.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Big game on Monday, Duane. Liverpool, Man United with a different flair, where United's not looking pretty good the last few weeks.
Yeah, look, this is probably the biggest rivalry in the English league. I think that historically speaking, it is unmatched in my opinion, and I say that as someone who is not the biggest fan of Manchester United. Exactly. Liverpool, I'm fine with. The enemy of your enemy, right? Anyway, also there's other reasons that people know me know. I'm
You don't have a choice.
Yeah, there's Liverpool gear around me as I speak right now. That is not mine, but someone else that lives here. So there you go. You can draw 2 and 2 together if you're listening. Don't know. At any rate, look, I think that the intensity of this rival, as I said, it is unmatched, and it's interesting too because they call it the derby, even though it's not actually a derby by the strictest sense that they're not from the same town. Although in this town, in this part of the world, it's insane to us that someone that's that close would not actually be a local derby. But at any rate,
it would be more than a local derby, Dwayne. In hockey terms,
closest,
it's like, wow, it's impossible.
Yeah, well, even soccer terms, man. I mean, other than the ground share at LA, what's the MLS's closest derbies?
New York, New York
unmatched. But the New York, the New York is whatever, blue or red. Interesting though, the intensity sometimes crosses the line, as we all know in any sport. And I always talk about sports hate versus real hate, and how we need to understand and draw that line. And not everyone is intellectually capable of drawing that line very well, which gets us on a slippery slope sometimes. There was a joint statement by the two clubs that was put out today, and I found this quite interesting that they're cooperating to try and finally bash this stuff out. And I can't believe they had to make a release that, begging their fans to not sing about the disasters that their clubs are most well known for, the Hillsborough, obviously, and Munich. But it says something about the intensity of the rivalry, and hopefully that well gets squashed out. As a City supporter, I think that the turning point for City fans, and they're not angels by any means, you'll still hear Munich songs, but sometimes, and that's not okay. But by and large, I think that the anniversary of the Munich disaster, when City played United and they had a whole ceremony before the whole game, the lead up to that, where so many right-minded City fans were drilling at home the need to not sing about Munich on the day of the anniversary, to remind people that there were City fans, in fact, or City people affected by that disaster at the same time, and all that sort of stuff was really what sort of squashed it out there, other than the lunatic fringe, so to speak. And hopefully now that we've had resolution with Hillsborough, that Munich is long past now, obviously, hopefully we might be able to squash that out of the lunatic, other than the lunatic fringe as well. That said, Kevin, I was at a pub about 2 weeks ago and heard Munich being sung about. So, hey, you can't, idiots are impossible to completely cure. You can only make sure that you're not an idiot, right?
Well, there's idiots in all fair society. And to be fair, fans of sports, it's just a representation. So there's a same amount of percentages of idiots as in real life. So there you go.
Yeah, well, there's laws, and we're familiar with the story at the Old Firm Derby, the first one of the new era, Rangers Celtic, when the Rangers fans, it was Celtic or Rangers, Celtic fans hung basically blow-up dolls, sex dolls, with scarves around their necks of the opposing team of Rangers fans.
Yeah, that crosses the line.
It's too much. And we speak here. Obviously, we've had a lot of conversation recently about banners and things like that at BMO Field. That's not quite at the same level, I don't think. Although I'm not condoning sexism and all that sort of jazz, but nonetheless, it does speak to this idea that we all, as fans, need to sometimes step up and enforce some level of human decency in the stands, even though we want to have that sports hate, and we know we don't. Never, I think sports would be no fun if we didn't. I was having banter with Cleveland Indians fans this morning, right? It's no fun unless you have a little bit of banter back and forth, but you have to understand where to draw that line. And hopefully, this joint statement that's out there between United and Liverpool, which, when you think about the rivalry between these clubs, like, look at the history, they don't deal with each other very often. There's something like 3 or 4 transfers ever between the two clubs. Like, it doesn't happen. They don't communicate, they don't deal. The rivalry goes deep.
They mind their own business. They just do without dealing with the other club. They just let the other club be. Because I think if you look back in history, there's probably more transfers and dealings between the two Manchester clubs than between United and Liverpool.
I believe there is. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot between those either, but nonetheless,
there's not a lot. There's more between TFC and Montreal than The
TFC
rivalries.
Montreal, like, let's not kid ourselves. They're partners in crime. They deal with each other all the time. They're like standing alone. Like
Just
anyone
before-
that talks about MLS rivalries misses that.
Before they were in MLS, Montreal, I remember the Greg Sutton of this world making the jump and other players like that going from Montreal to TFC because they want to be in MLS. And you've seen the Colin Warner, and there's many more trades. But Cal Becker, a lot of players have switched sides from Montreal and TFC.
Yeah, not to compare the rivalry between TFC and Montreal and Manchester United and Liverpool in any way whatsoever. Like, not even on same planet, folks.
And for just to lay the groundwork, Duane, for newly Premier League fans that have been following the league for the last 4 or 5 years, Liverpool used to be the best club, and Man United was becoming the best club. And you had Sir Alex Ferguson and Bill Shankly, and you had those two different opinions on how to play football, those two different type of fans, those two different cities growing up, becoming bigger cities, bigger clubs, bigger things, all almost in a parallel time. And it was twice a year when they faced in the Premier League or the top flight at that time, which was different, or they would fight in on European stage. It was such a momentous occasion because, well, it was meaningful. Like, who's the best in this country?
Well, for sure, yeah, the rivalry did actually emerge there. I mean, there's also, a regional rivalry aspect to it, and like any good regional rivalry, to an outsider, the difference between a Manc and a Scouse is kind of indistinguishable, despite the accent difference. Just like Shelbyville and Springfield and all that sort of jazz. But to them, the differences are immense, right? So that's like any good regional rivalry has that sort of befiddlement to anyone who's outside of it, but it's key component to their identity inside it. So that's part of it as well. But certainly it is the rivalry. In modern days, look, I think that in the modern game right now, if you want to just look in the Premier League era, other rivalries have maybe at least matched it. Certainly, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here. If you look at Arsenal and their great teams, the Arsenal United rivalry back in the early part of the turn of the century was immense and probably the equal. I think since the money came into City, that the Manchester Derby has absolutely stepped up and been the equal intensity and all that. Before the money came in, the Manchester Derby was like many of those big club, little club in the same city derbies in the sense that it was fun and but the big club just ultimately was like once every 10 years they'd get bit by the ant, but the other times they squish it, right? So that didn't have the same intensity. And that's a key component to any rivalry too, is that they have to have like the outcome has to be in doubt.
It was Villa Birmingham for the last decade. Now it's more on equal footing, but that's what it was before, right? Where two clubs in the same city, one that's on a top flight, one that's dwindling sometimes from Championship to League One, and they're fighting each other. It's never really a fair fight.
Yeah. All right. We're going to this is how we're going to approach the big derby games in the Premier League this year. Is we're going to give them individual focus, probably talk about them in a bit of a preview format. If time and if availability out there, we'll maybe find a guest to talk about them, and we'll watch the games and review them in a more intense way than we would just a simple game of the game of the week review. So that's our intent. So look for that coverage, tomorrow and on Monday, Tuesday, the game's on Monday. So we'll get some more coverage out there in the days ahead and other big games as well. Like I said, when Arsenal plays United and, Chelsea, Arsenal, again, we missed it the last time, but certainly the Manchester Derby, we did a bit of it. That's kind of our
I'm still trying to forget about that Arsenal Chelsea from a few weeks ago, Duane, so we don't have to bring it back up. I'm still reeling from that loss. We can move on.
Precisely. In general, getting it back to this game, though, in general, it's a weird one in the sense that we're coming off the international break and it's the last game of the week. So it's been so long since we've seen either club play that it's hard to really get a handle on how this one's going to go, at least for me. The storylines of the last week have all been international in nature, especially with the English teams, with Rooney, not getting the start and so on and so forth.
Argentina losing to Paraguay.
Yeah, there's a lot going on in the international world that we're just sort of shaking out of our head now. So to get focused and have this kind of game on a Monday, which still seems a ways away, does become difficult to gear up for it. But in general, my initial feeling, and maybe it's my blue goggles, and maybe it's the fact that who I share a lease with, I do tend to think maybe Liverpool might be the favorite heading into this game. They might be on the better form.
Well, they're definitely on the better form. And not just that, the ramification of this game are different for both clubs. What if Marino loses again? What if there's another points not gathered for United? It's almost a title contending losing run they're on if they lose this game, because, well, let's face it, that gap has been already created by 2 or 3 clubs. Liverpool might be joining that club with a win against United on Monday. It's that type of game for United, because they have to show, Mourinho has to show that his squad that's built differently than the squad that he's used to have. I wouldn't say a squad of outcasts, but the most expensive player of the world, Paul Pogba, joined by the most Zlatan player of the world, Zlatan, and then other players like that. It's a different type of team and different type of blueprint of what Mourinho usually has as a potential good starting 11. Usually he has about 8-9 players that he inks in every single game sheet and never move from it. That was the case when he won the Premier League in 2014, with Chelsea. He had those 9 players, the likes of Hazard and company, starting every single game. That was just a normal league game. Those guys are there, and that's different. He doesn't have that with United. He doesn't have 9 strong enough player day in, day out that will be starting his team. There'll be more squad rotation. It'll be interesting to see how Mourinho adapts to the non-result that he's getting. He's not the most patient manager, and speaking of patience, hasn't won anything since 2014. He's not used to it. We'll see how he handles that pressure, because it is getting type of hot in the red part of Manchester right now.
No, for sure. The form of the two clubs going in: Liverpool 4th place right now on 16 points. Win, draw their last 5. United is just 3 points back. They seem worse, but they're in 6th place on 13. That draw, win, loss, win. Those 2 losses still looming large after their hot start, which we do kind of forget now. 6-point gap at this point in the season is not something to either panic or sniff at. It is significant and insignificant both at the same time. But this game, as I said a moment ago, as we opened up this block with, is never insignificant. So absolutely, Liverpool will be looking to try and make that gap and trying to improve it. I think that just looking at the form chart here, that we're giving Arsenal short stick. They're on 5 straight wins, so we should probably watch them.
Arsenal is one of the title contenders, I believe, this year so far. After the first 8 days of match day, you have City, Spurs, and Arsenal so far. That are the 3 outstanding team, and you have a few battling for that cusp. Chelsea, United, Liverpool. I would consider those 3 in the same type of pack, just behind the top 3. I think the big clubs are back. If you're looking at the standings this year, I don't think a Leicester is possible in 2016-17, by the way.
Well, no, you're just looking at the Crystal Palace is the closest of an outsider team or Everton, I suppose.
Everton, yeah,
Everton
which is
pretty good history.
Yeah, exactly.
Look, we'll wrap this up in a minute. As I said, we're going to give this more attention first. Obviously, I said I laid it out there. I have more time for Liverpool right now, both on a guttural, rational level and on a irrational level. I do like the work Klopp's doing. I do like the work he's doing with young players, his attention to the academy. Apparently, the first thing he did when he arrived at Liverpool was to go watch academy games, which I think is telling of what his philosophy is. Certainly, you're seeing evidence of that. But that said, Liverpool, to me, is still a team that is probably a year or 2 away from being a title contender. They still have to shore that back line up. They are still pretty leaky that way. And, so I do think that probably where they're battling, and this is the final thought on this, is that Liverpool and United very well could be fighting for that final Champions League spot this year. And I think that that's kind of where they are. And so it's just a massive game.
Right. It is, and it will be fascinating to see. We'll talk about the other games in the weekend tomorrow on our Games of the Week segment.
And we'll also, I said, break this down a little more detailed in the days ahead. But until that time, let's take a quick break, come back with some bits and bites.
You're listening to Soccer Today on SPN Radio. You can find the on-demand version of this very show on iTunes, Stitcher, Feedburner, Podbay Player, Podbean, anywhere you get your podcasts under the Sports Podcasting Network feed. subscribe to our YouTube page to make sure you never miss a live show talking about soccer today, the MLS post-game show, open lines after dark, 5 rings daily during the Olympics. Make sure you subscribe and give us a follow on Twitter at SportsPodNet and like our Facebook page, facebook.com/Sports Podcasting Network.
Kevin, where were you during the great Christine Sinclair retirement scare of 2016?
I was not on Twitter, so I missed it.
Okay. Well, in fairness,
do explain, please.
All right. Yesterday, the CSA, as it's apt to do, sent this weirdly vague press release out that says that Peter Montopoli, Peter, I always mix his name up. Sorry for that. Peter, the General Secretary of the CSA, and John Herdman and Christine Sinclair would be at a press conference in Vancouver where they were, quote unquote, going to make an important announcement about the future of the Canadian women's national team. Whenever you see a press release that doesn't give you any details of what it's going to be, and it contains, like, you know, to use a club analogy for this one, GM, coach, star player who's in her 30s, in their 30s, in whatever case. There is very often that is they're setting up, oh God, there's another press release coming Friday morning, and it's going to be, you know, Christine Sinclair led the team through these many years, and this is what she accomplished in her career, and now this is what she's doing. It very much, and I'm not just making this up. This is not me being paranoid or me being overreacting on something. It looked exactly like a retirement press release, and that's why immediately, not just me, but a lot of people like Jared Peters and Gavin and myself were all like, what the hell? What's this mean? Because it certainly did seem like that. Now, since this has happened, and Twitter freaked out, of course. Well, actually, you know, those of us that read press releases all the time sort of suggested this without reporting it. Like, and to be clear, at no point was I ever reporting that Christine Sinclair was retiring yesterday. But I would say that that's what the press release looked like, and a lot of people backed that up. And then, of course, the fans jumped in, and, you know, some report in France came out to say that she was likely announcing her retirement on Friday, and it just sort of kind of just spiral out of control. I've since been told, and I can, you know, report this, I guess, if you trust my, you know, unnamed source here. I've since been told that, in no uncertain terms, that Christine Sinclair is not announcing her retirement tomorrow. So you can relax, Canadian fans. That's what I've been told by a fairly reliable source. So there you go.
All right, we can sleep tonight.
Yeah, look, what the announcement probably is a home friendly. Now, that's fine, and I'm glad. But, dear CSA, that's not a vital, important announcement that you're making. Just send the damn press release telling us it's friendly. We'll still report the news. You don't have to tease us like that, because you're going to create panic in the country if you do that again. So anyway, that's my say there. It's not the greatest PR technique, but they'll be sometimes, you know, if you don't tell the outlets what they're going to cover, they might not show up.
But by trying to be a tease, you might actually start rumors by just not saying what it is.
Or yeah, as I said, the other side of it is that if you do that too many times, and you might just start to get press or outlets just not sending anyone to the press releases, because they've been burnt every time that they go, oh, it's an important, we better send someone, and they get there and it's like, oh, we're going to play Thailand in November. Okay.
Let's speculate for a second. An announcement for the future of the program. That's what they said. Basically, a new title sponsor. Could be a new infrastructures, maybe in the Vancouver region. That's where the national team has been based over the last few years. I wouldn't be surprised it's one of those included with a friendly announcement, maybe, Duane. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, we could hope, because that would at least make it somewhat justified what they said. As I said, a friendly onto its own should not be news. And the fact that they're trying to make it news. They're essentially trying to manipulate the press into selling their tickets for them by getting them themselves on TSN, which is fine. That's their job, but it's not the press's job to lap it up like a dog. So be careful moving forward. No, it's speculating. I do think it's a friendly announcement, but it could also have something to do with Sinclair's future with the program in a less scary way than retirement. They could be trying to get her into a coaching role with the under 20s, maybe.
Yeah, like a coach or player, like coach player. Ready to come up?
Just like I don't know if Christine Sinclair has coaching in her future, to be honest. She's kind of shy, and I'm not sure whether that personality would resonate. And obviously, her skills are there, and obviously her
You want to find a way to
presence.
Yeah, but Dwayne, you want to find a way to get that knowledge, that experience, that talent that she has to the best SCN possible for the country. So what way could you do that? If it's a coach, it's coach, whatever is that way, we need to do this. We need to all the knowledge base and the experience that she gathered the last 2 decades. We need to pass that on. So in one way, shape, or form, we need to figure a way to pass that on to the next generation.
Yeah, and look, I'll go a step further than that. The Canadian Soccer Association should be planning right now about how A, they're going to handle Christine Sinclair's retirement, B, how they're going to deal with her post-Sinclair, which I think they're already doing at a technical level, and C, how they're going to keep her here. Because right now, I get the hunch that Christine Sinclair might just retire to Portland and start helping the American system indirectly or otherwise, right? If she's not in this country. I think the CSA absolutely needs to start planning on ways to keep her involved after her retirement, which may be maybe 4 years away, but it's not 14 years away anymore. It is coming up.
She always mentioned 2019 as after the next World Cup. And when you get to 2019, there's always that Olympics just coming after. So maybe 2020, after the 2020 season, after the Olympics of 2020, would be a reason, not reasonable, but it would be fair assumption that that's what she maybe is planning in her head. She has talked about wanting to play up until the 2019 World Cup, and once you get there, you're so close to the Olympic, so you might actually want to go there if Canada's in a good position with the national team at that point.
Yeah, well, and want and can are two different things, though. Not to be cold about it.
Because the world of women's soccer is going to continue to evolve in the next 4 years, where countries like France and European countries that are part of the European Champions League have playing at a high level. You've seen countries like Sweden grow because of this. That will continue to be the case over the next 4 years.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, if she wakes up and I don't sense this about her. I think that she. I don't pretend to know her on a personal level, but having dealt with her a couple times in the past and watched her closely throughout her career, she doesn't strike me as someone that's going to hold on to the detriment of the program, like maybe a famous American player did. Anyway, moving past that. But that said, if she wakes up in 2 years with this desire to play, but like her knee's gone or whatever, and she can't run and she can't keep up anymore, there's a tough decision that might have to be made at that point and I don't know whether the program can, because she is bigger than the program right now. It's a difficult thing to move on legends like this, particularly in the women's game, because the women's game, this kind of is, well, it's the second generation of the women's game, but it is the first generation in Canada that the women's program has had the national presence that it has now. So certainly Christine Sinclair is going to be a very difficult person to move past.
Here's an analogy, Dwayne. What happened when Mia Hamm retired?
I don't actually remember very much. But
well, she wasn't involved to the level of there wasn't a program to be involved with, maybe at the level now, but it was different. She never coached the U.S. women's national team. She wasn't involved in coaching. She went on other opportunities, but it wasn't, her knowledge and all that wasn't necessarily passed on. There was like almost a clear cut from her. Christine Sinclair is the first superstar of the Canadian women's national team in their history at that level. She's the Mia Hamm of Canada. Let's face it. Hopefully not the same thing happens. Goes back to, we need to find a way to retain and gain that knowledge to the younger generation, because it's invaluable, the amount of experience, knowledge, whatever she has experienced and learned, and how to get to the level that she has been. That's what we need to pass on.
Yeah, and look, I'll go back to what I said off the top there. Maybe finding a role for her with the under-20s, the under-17s, or the under-15s even, like something that can even be a symbolic role, like an inspirational role, right? That she's there as a mentor.
Mentorship,
like
mentorship role.
Not even necessarily a coach, just a mentor that's there to sort of teach the kids how to be professional, how to
just go
be
back
an
to this
international
summer.
player.
Sorry to interrupt, Dwayne. Just go back to this summer when you have. That's basically what she did at the Olympics. She was at a high level. She was scoring and she was assisting, but she was bringing the team with her. She was passing on how getting involved Janine Becky in the minute of the tournament. That's what was fun to see as well, is her evolution in her role with the team, where she still is the best scorer and the most reliable player on the pitch. but she is involving in more the teammates. You see that openness that she did have this year compared to last year, to involve all her players around her, knowing that the skill level, that the drive and determination, that everything is up to par and she can go forward with that program.
Yeah, so give her a title, find some money, pay her a little extra on top so that she's making a better living for herself, and she feels more loyal to the CSA moving forward, so that when that time comes in 4 years, 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is, that she wants to stay in Canada and wants to continue to grow this program, so that she doesn't go somewhere where, let's say, like I said, Portland. I think she feels quite at home in Portland, so maybe the University of Portland offers her some kind of role that's similar or whatever, and she's suddenly not helping the Canadian program.
The Thorns are going to offer her something.
Yeah, like, so that she's helping an area that's not us anymore. So I think that, yeah, it's imperative for the Canadian Soccer Association to start planning how they're going to deal with Christine Sinclair moving forward in a positive way. I mean that, so that they can maintain her. All right, there's a couple more items I wanted to get to quickly before the show ended here. Javinko is back in full training. I don't think there's much more to say about that. We'll probably see him start in Montreal on Sunday. I'll go so far as to say this, that if Javinko does not start on Sunday in Montreal, and certainly if he's not on the bench again, there's more wrong than they're letting on, and you can start to panic, TFC fans. I'll give you full permission, but apparently all reports are that he is fully reporting there. How's the injury front in Montreal heading into to the other derby before the one we talked about earlier?
Oh, so far so good for Montreal. The key players will be available for the game on Sunday, and that's the important thing for Montreal. They're a long layoff. It's been the international break for majority of MLS club. A few played last weekend, so it's going to be interesting to see how they recover from. With the Montreal Impact's average of age, which is the second highest in the league, that long international break is very useful for Drogba's knees, Drogba's knocks, Piatti's recuperation. All those things are so important. And now with those 2 straight wins that Montreal did accumulate in the 1 week before the international break, they come in with 2 games to play. Not batteries fully recharged, but very close to it, and heading in 2 games at home against teams that they are directly linked and had played a major role against this season, if you're talking about Toronto and talking about New England Revolution. So it will be fascinating to see where they finally end up. As we speak, they're 4th in the Eastern Conference. A lot of things have changed in 1 week. When they were close to not even making the playoff, now we might be talking about, if the results go their way in the last 2 games, of a first round play-in games at home against DC, or maybe a Philly, or maybe even Revolution if they get hot in the last 2 weeks.
Fair enough. I'm going to throw the Mix Abbey stuff out the window here. We don't need to talk about that.
We'll touch it on tomorrow. One thing I wanted to mention yesterday, but I didn't have a chance to. If you are a soccer player in the San Francisco Bay Area, the San Francisco Deltas are holding open tryouts in November. Bay Area clubs, founding members, and public invited to Croker, Amazon for local tryouts. It's going to happen November 11th, and November 12th. Contact the San Francisco Delta if you are interested. Mark Dos Santos, after the future coach of the San Francisco Delta, the actual coach of the Swope Park Ranger in the Western Conference of the USL playoff this weekend. After his playoff run, Mark Dos Santos will join the Deltas and will be joining, if that run is over, at the tryout. He will be part of the committee to choose the players. So if you are a soccer player, once again, from the Bay Area, from San Francisco area, or if you can travel and really want to play professional, just head out to the Croker Amazon Park to your tryout.
All right. Another item, I'll tease it for tomorrow, and we'll do it tomorrow. I have done a little digging over the past few weeks to try and figure out exactly how much the CSA probably can afford to pay a coach using Floro's salary. So I've talked to a few people to try and get a number out there. I do have a number that I am pretty confident in terms of what Benito Floro was paid, which you could probably use to understand how much they will be looking at to pay the next coach. So we'll probably talk about that tomorrow. I'll leave it well enough alone. There's your tease for the day, Kevin. Until that time, though, I'll let you, as always, say goodbye.
Stay tuned to SPN Radio tomorrow, 11 a.m. Another edition of Soccer Today Live with our games of the week. And until then, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us sportspodcastingnetwork.com.